what are you seeing after 5 years? Because this is the big pushback that I get, right, from a lot of these doctors that are chopping off a lot of bone is what is it going to look like in 5 to 10 years from now?
Yeah.
When
So
the gums shrink.
so we're showing these pictures that are 5-7 years where we're getting more bone density.
Welcome to another episode of the 3 on 6 podcast with Dr. Randy Roberts.
Education, empowerment, starting now.
Hello and welcome to the 3 on 6 podcast with Dr. Randy Roberts. Today we have a special guest, Dr. Art Mirelez, who I'm super excited to have because he is an amazing doctor as well as an amazing human. I always try to bring as many people into the 3 on 6 as I feel like have like-minded values that I feel like are really focused on trying to give the patient a better experience at whatever cost. And I feel like he's one of those people that has dedicated his life to God as well as to helping and serving the patients and making their lives better. And in doing so, he has created so many things that also help our lives as doctors be so much better. So I've been following him for several years, and we finally have partnered and started working together because I had him come out to our office a month or two ago or a few months ago, and he was able to help make our processes with the 3 on 6 significantly better just because what he does is amazing. So I'm excited to have you here, Art, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Randy. Ditto, because I've been following you for quite some time, and I think what you're doing is very admirable, and you took a risk, and I like risk takers, especially if they're doing to better serve our patients. And I think also kind of where we connected was at a spiritual level. You know, I think the Lord has really led us to do what we feel is best based off the spiritual gifts that he's blessed. I know we got these little bugs here. I'm sure I'm going to swallow one. But no, you know, I think in all seriousness, I think, you know, God has blessed us with these spiritual gifts, and it's our responsibility to kind of give back to help serve. And I think that's what you're doing with 3 on 6 is really treating people the way that you would treat your own family member. And
Yeah.
which is the way that we should all be practicing dentistry and just living life. You know?
Yeah. And honestly, it's something that I feel like you're really good at and you're really open with. You started off your lecture with saying, you know, like, thank you, God, and praise Jesus. And like, I feel like I've struggled a little bit with doing that because I feel like with the medical profession, it's like most or a lot of people are like, you know, I believe in science, you know, I don't believe in God. And so I feel like so much of my whole journey has been through prayer and through trying to just be in tune with the Spirit. And like, I prayed before all of my surgeries and during my surgeries, like, help me. And like a lot of times, I felt like I didn't know what I was going to do when I went into the surgery. You know, it's like I don't have a game plan. And I feel like I've learned a certain amount of comfortability with that because I trust that God is going to help me and he's going to help me get me from A to Z with my patients. And I've grown confident in that. I've grown confident in that relationship. But that's something that I haven't really felt comfortable talking to doctors about because I don't really feel like there's a whole lot of doctors who get that. But I feel like, or maybe there are more of this or not really willing to talk about it, but you are. So I feel like this is a conversation that I can finally have with another doctor.
Hey, I'm happy to talk about it. You know, Randy, I think I'll kind of give you the backstory is I was really hit with the Holy Spirit probably about 18, my daughter's 21, so probably about 18 years ago. And I went to church and the sermon was about being bold, right? And the unique thing about the way the pastor presented is like boldness does not mean we have to go out and, you know, be on the street corner and, you know, screaming, you know, our faith beliefs, but really just living life, right? And he said something that really hit home for me. He said, don't talk about it, just live about it. And so what does that mean by living about it? So I remember immediately after that sermon, I had this big cross in my home, and I took the cross and I put it in my office. As soon as you walk in to my office, it hits you right in the face. And my office manager, who was excellent, she came up to me and she says, "Hey, doc, like, I'm a little concerned." "Well, what are you concerned?" She's like, "Wow, like you might offend people by having that up there, and there's other people that don't feel the way that you do." And so what I shared with her is that we have to really believe, and we have to live the life that we believe in without shame. And I told her, I said, if somebody walks in, good or bad experience because of my faith, it's going to be a win. And she looked at me perplexed, like, "What do you mean, good or bad experience?" I said, "Because if they can relate to me, then that's a good thing because we are meeting at a spiritual level. But if they can't and they're offended by it, for that 1 second that they were offended by that cross, they thought about God when they could have went their entire day not even thinking about God. So it was still a win, even if they got offended by it." And believe it or not, Randy, like in the 18 years that I've been doing this and really not being ashamed about how I live my life, I've only had one patient that said something, not to me, but to my hygienist. And so I walked in and I just said, "Hey, Mr. Jones, I understand you have a concern and I'm happy to talk about it." And he says, "No, I'm okay." I said, "Are you sure?" He's like, "No, I'm okay." I said, "I'll be happy to talk about it." So I kind of pushed, and he's like, "No, I'm okay." And he kept coming to the office. So, you mentioned like me really sharing that. To me, it's, if I'm standing at the gates of heaven and I have to second guess my answer when he asked me, like, "You had this opportunity to share me with the world and you didn't do it." Why? Like, what am I going to say at that moment?
Right.
And so those are the things that I think about I shared this, I think, earlier with you, is that I really strive to live for the audience of one. And I think if we live for the audience of one, then what everybody else says or thinks doesn't really matter.
Could you explain that real quick in case somebody doesn't know what you're talking about, the audience of one?
So the audience of one is the person that you should strive to live your life for. And it's not my wife, it's not my children, it's my God. And if I live to satisfy his desires, and they're in line biblically with his desires that he wishes for me, then it should not have a negative impact on anybody else. So I know that you've taken a lot of shots with 3 on 6. I know that people have been naysayers. I know that people have said that's not the way to do it. It's not going to work in 10, 15 years. What does it look like? But you did it because you sincerely believed it was the right thing to do, and you took a risk. And then after years of seeing success, you're like, "See, I told you so," right? You don't say that, but the proof is there. So that's how I feel about my faith. Like, I have miraculous stories that people would not ever believe. And it's only because I've been truly blessed. And how can I not just live life for him after he's blessed me completely?
Yeah.
So
So yeah, you said in my journey, I've had to take a lot of arrows, right? And I feel like you're also an innovator and created a lot of things. Have you also similarly had to take a lot of arrows?
yeah, a lot. We've been doing InstaRisa for 8 years when Fernando came to my office in 2018. So we're going on 8 years. And, the things that we're doing, literally people, sent me text messages or told me to my face, like, "Oh, that doesn't work," And I'm like, the proof is in the pudding, right? And that's why we started having courses that were proof of concept courses, right? It's not a course where I'm just lecturing and showing you the best cases. We just bring any patient in and we take the patient through the journey from start to finish. So the doctors get to witness every step along the way to see that anybody can pull this off if they have the right recipe, if they have the right workflow, if they have the right technology, if they have the right support. if they have the right team behind them. And I think that's where I feel like we connect, is that it's not just about 3-on-6. Like, it takes a group of people to pull this off, and you've recognized this. I've met, a lot of your support team, and you can sense and feel like they believe in what you're doing.
Right.
And once you get people believing in what you're doing, then it's easier. It's a lot easier. So for us, with InstaRisa, it's not just about a facial scanner. It's really about an ecosystem that comes with support for the doctor, for the dental team, for the laboratory. We advise on what's the best technology to use out there, what are some alternative methods, what's the most efficient, predictable, cost-effective way of doing things. So,
Yeah, so for example, one of the things that I've been trying to figure out with my lab forever is how do we, when we're placing our immediate teeth in there, how do we make sure that those are going to sit passively without hitting any bone? Because so many times, like when we're trying to get the teeth in there, they're not sitting because they're hitting bone somewhere. So we'll either have to adjust the teeth or adjust the bone.
yeah.
And you guys came in there and you fixed that problem for us in 2 seconds. And so just solving the facial scanner plan part is a huge part of it. Like that helps get the aesthetics better, and that helps plan your case better, have way fewer amounts of temporary teeth for patients. But you also have figured out how to solve so many of the other problems in the whole process to make sure that it is awesome. So I think that you're great with all the different things that you've been able to figure out and to accomplish, and just to create your whole workflow, which is amazing. And being able to help us with our workflow has been awesome. So it's been so far, and we've only been married in our relationship, our dental relationship, for a couple months now, something like that. But I'm excited.
Well, thank you for taking a chance on us. Because we tend to see that when you let us just prove it to people, right? You let it prove it to you by actually doing it, not just talking about it, then people have a tendency to jump on board. And somebody like you, I'm always humbled when somebody is on the cutting edge of really trying to optimize the type of dentistry that they're doing, embraces InstaRisa. It just means a lot, because I know that you've done your homework. You've tried multiple things, and the fact that you decided to partner up with us, it was honestly like one of the happiest days of the team's life. Like, all right, we got 3-on-6 on board. This is, now we know we're moving in the right direction. So, but no, I think just the doctors, the way that the 3-on-6 doctors think, that is really different than most dentists out there. I tell my patients that you're gonna have to pay me one way or another. And if I'm going to chop your bone off, like most dentists are doing, you have to make a decision. Do you want to pay me with your bone, or do you want to pay just a little extra with your money to get it done the right way? But one or another, you're going to pay for it.
Right.
Right. And I think, doing the 3-on-6 method, it does take a special skill set. I think the courses that you offer, I've talked to some of your doctors, and they're like, listen, like, I've learned so many pearls by just watching. That's why I asked you the other day, like, hey, when's your next course?
Yeah.
I want to come watch.
We need to get you in there for sure.
I want to, because they're saying just some of the pearls that they picked up by just watching you do it, surgically, prosthetically, those are key things. And I think what you've developed is really an ecosystem in itself of helping doctors market what they're doing, having patients educated to make the best decision. Because it's not the easier way that we're doing things when we do 3-on-6. It's definitely more challenging, but you've instilled the confidence in these doctors to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So
our biggest cheerleaders, honestly, are our patients.
Yeah.
So it's like they can tell the difference between what they got and what their friend got. And they're like, I just have teeth in my mouth again. And the other patients are like, oh, well, I've got kind of like a denture and it's really hard to clean. They compare, and it's like, okay, whenever I have an opportunity, I recommend it. So we've got a Facebook community of patients. We've got like 5,000 patients on there that are kind of like our cheerleaders.
Yeah.
And so whenever anybody's curious about the 3-on-6, they go into this Facebook group and like they say, hey, I have a question about this, and they'll just be on there. And the patients answer all the questions for us, because and so a good percentage of our patients are referrals from these people, and the other ones that we drive into the Facebook group, those people will convert them, and they'll tell them about their stories and say, well, can you post me pictures? And they'll post them pictures. They'll say, show me your gums. And they'll say, how is it to clean, or what's the surgery like? And like, hey, I'm having pain after my surgery. Is this normal? I'm like, hey, that's what happened to me during my surgery. And it's this amazing group for patients where they all take care of each other and they all really care about each other, and they can feel the love and concern that we have for them as well. So with the 3-on-6, we've broken those bridges up into small enough pieces that it's almost impossible to break those. So because it's almost impossible to break, you can make it so much more narrow, and you can make it feel like natural teeth. And because it's so much more narrow, it's so much more easy to clean. And so it's more easy to clean. You're able to speak with it better. And one of the other benefits of that is because it's broken up into bridges, each one of those bridges can actually move a little bit. So that means that you have proprioception. Because the bridges can move, you can feel when you bite over here versus over here. When it's all one solid piece, if you bite over here, the whole thing still moves. So it's not like you can feel where you're biting, and you can't feel that. So you got the proprioception. Also, because the bridges are able to move, it makes it so that you can stimulate bone growth. It's like if you break your arm,
Yep.
put it in a cast, it helps it heal for a little bit. But if you leave it in a cast forever, then you're going to have bone atrophy and muscle atrophy. And it's the same thing with your teeth. If you put them in one restoration, first off, you have to make that restoration super thick so that it won't break. But then if you just leave your implants in that restoration forever, those implants are going to start having bone atrophy or resorption around them because they're just not getting stimulated. But if you are able to stimulate them more with chewing, then you get more bone growth around them.
Interesting. Are you seeing, what are you seeing after 5 years? Because this is the big pushback that I get, right, from a lot of these doctors that are chopping off a lot of bone is, what is it going to look like in 5 to 10 years from now
Yeah.
when
So
the gums shrink?
So we're showing these pictures that are 5-7 years where we're getting more bone density. So we're showing x-rays where the patients 5 years later have more bone.
Yeah.
And they have still the same bone and tissue that they had, but if you look at the x-ray, the bone is more dense around those implants so part of it is, making sure that you're stimulating the bone growth, but the other part of it is making sure that the patients are able to clean it well, because if you can't clean it well, obviously you're going to have some bone recession as well. But then also another part of it is just making sure that you're getting a good source of calcium, because if you don't have a good enough source of calcium, and most of the calciums that you get from the store come from coral. And so coral is really difficult for your body to assimilate and to pack and to put into your bones. So we make all of our patients take an algae calcium, and we found that the algae calcium actually assimilates into your bone much more readily. And so we've seen bone density increase with that. So those three things of making it so that you can get bone stimulation by breaking it up into bridges, making sure that they're narrow so that they're easily cleanable, and then making sure that the patients also are getting a good source of calcium so that their bones and calcium with vitamin D. And we've made our own algae calcium with vitamin D in there, so that
that's something new. Thanks for sharing that, Randy. Is that something that the patients take for their lifetime?
For their lifetime.
Okay.
Yep, and we've seen the patients that don't take it, we've seen that they can still lose some bone.
Okay.
So they can lose some bone density. So it's like you have to do all three of the things, because if you're missing a part, especially like patients that are lactose intolerant and they're not able to get any milk or get any calcium at all, it's like you definitely need to be getting, because
I need your algae, bro. I'm lactose intolerant.
Oh yeah, you need to be getting a good source of this. Yeah, even if you've just got teeth, you're gonna be losing your bone, right? It's like you'll see patients losing bone over time just if they don't have a good, because your muscles, your brain, your body runs on calcium. It needs it to function. And so if you're not getting enough calcium in your diet, then you're just sucking your bones you're just sucking the calcium out of your bones to function. So you need to be getting a good amount of calcium every day from a good source.
That's
in
good
order
to know. So are you starting your patients preoperatively on calcium? Okay.
Yeah, as soon as we start the consultation process, we try to start getting them on the calcium at that point. Because a lot of our patients will say, well, especially like women that are in their 40s or older, they're like, I've got osteoporosis. And we say, we're not worried about that as long as you start taking the algae calcium and with the vitamin D right now, so that we can start building up your bone. And we've been able to see a significant increase in bone density just over the course of a few months if they're taking that.
That's good. That's good information. I think, and that's the other thing that I think that's important, is really making sure that patients understand that this is not just a chewing machine, right? It's really investing in a better quality of life that starts with nutrition and digestion and how your body metabolizes it. And so that's something we do also in our practice. We don't do the algae. I'm really interested in implementing that, but really starting patients on a complete supplemental nutritional routine 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after, and then having them maintain that. And we also see better results by doing that. And it's just part of the package per se.
Yeah, and it's part of like our warranty as well. It's like we will guarantee that your implants and your bone and everything should last as long as you're taking your algae cal, you're coming in for your cleanings every 6 months, and you're taking care of your teeth.
Yeah. Tell me more about that. I think that's a question I get a lot as far as dive a little bit deeper, if you don't mind, in terms of the warranty. Because as we know, like these types of restorations have only been in existence for maybe 30 years, right? With Palomalo introducing that to us. So when patients ask me, how long is this going to last? Like, I have to be honest with them. Like, we don't have 100-year-old data, right? It doesn't exist. So when a patient does ask you, what is your warranty? What is that conversation like?
So we have a lifetime warranty, which means that for the first year, it's like an unlimited warranty.
Okay.
And then after that, for the first, between the year 1 and year 5, they get most everything is going to be covered. They're just gonna have to pay the lab fees or the parts fees for the work that needs to get done. And then after 5 years, they still get 50% off of the work that needs to get done, including the lab fee and everything like that. So it's and for the most part, if you do have something that needs to get replaced, if it's only a single bridge, which is what it would normally be or something like that, it's a lot less expensive to fix a single bridge than it is to fix an entire arch.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Next.
Yeah, that's a good modality. That's really minimizing the risk from the patient's perspective if something does go awry. Because listen, we don't have control if the patient starts smoking 2 packs a day or becomes an alcoholic or, God forbid, a drug addict, or their metabolism changes due to diabetes. So those are things that are sometimes beyond our control.
Right.
But I think it's a good, valid point that if you have it sectioned in 3 sections, it's very rare that you have a catastrophe where everything is breaking down. So if just one section breaks down, then you're just, in for having to redo that section.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and with the advent of the TRRI implants, which I'm super excited about, and you're also a big user as well, like one of the biggest problems that the journey has been starting off with implants where the abutments were narrow and the abutments would break. And then after that, the journey was we finally got photogrammetry and we're able to start screw retaining everything, but then we had those little tiny prosthetic screws, and so the bridges would loosen when those little screws could potentially break after some years. But now getting rid of those weak parts, the weak abutment and the weak prosthetic screw, now going straight to the implant with a big old strong bolt, like you called it. Like I feel like we're at this time now that in dentistry where it's just so much better than it was when we graduated school.
Yes.
And and so much of it has to do with things that you've also been able to incorporate all these different technologies all together into the workflow, right?
Well, that's one of the things that excited me was when I heard you were using TRRI, specifically for the 3-on-6 concept. I knew that what we were doing was probably something special, right? Because when you have, patients always, there's another concern, right? Patients say, why is this so expensive? Why is it cost X amount of dollars to do this? Well, part of it is the overhead that we have to support on a daily basis. And a lot of that overhead is inventory. So when you just mentioned, abutments. So for patients, that's an extra part that we have to stock. And an abutment, it comes in different heights, different angles, right? And then also different fits. So there's like 3 different, levels of complexity of parts that we have to stock, because when a patient walks in, I have to have it.
Right.
And so that's very, very costly. And obviously, this is a business. We're not in a position to do this for free.
All of these parts are hundreds of dollars.
Lots of money.
Right.
Lots of money. I mean, a simple little screw is, $50. Another part is $150. I mean, it's a lot.
Right.
And so all this money is essentially sitting on our shelves, waiting for a patient to use it.
Right.
And so now with TRRI, we don't have to necessarily inventory all of that. So my goal is always, how can I make this better, faster, and still maintain the level of quality at a lower cost?
Right.
And I think TRRI has a solution for that. And I'm excited.
Yeah, and one of the most important parts for me is longevity. Like I want these things, like I guarantee my work, and I don't want to be seeing the patients because something came loose or broke.
Yeah.
And so always trying to find out what the best, strongest thing is. So yeah, with now having the TRRI implants, I feel like we've gotten rid of the weakest parts that were obviously the weakest parts, which was like really just hard on me to be doing these things. Like why is there not an implant company that is just solving this little problem that seems like it would be a simple solution?
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm just gonna I bought an implant mill, and I was working on trying to make my own implants.
Really?
Because I was so frustrated with
Yeah.
the implant companies until TRRI came along, and I'm like, okay, now I can calm down on trying to figure out how to make my own implants because we've got a legit implant company now.
I think that's why I like you, man. Like you're a problem solver, you know, and if there's not a solution that you can go out and buy, then you're going to have the tendency to go out and try to make it or fix it yourself.
And I think you're similar, right? You took a piece of software with the facial scanner that was for a completely different industry and said, I think this is what we need in our industry, and you're able to incorporate them too and make it so that things just work better.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being so complimentary and inviting us all over to Cabo of all places. This is pretty amazing, you know?
Yeah.
I meant it when I said growing up, I never fathomed being able to fly across the country to go and speak to world renowned and these elite dentists to share a little something about what we created. So thanks for giving us the opportunity.
And thank you so much for coming. And did you want to take a second to talk about your courses?
Yeah, so if you're interested in InstaRisa, it's a digital workflow, as you know, and we're able to incorporate whatever technology a doctor has, whether it's, you know, an intraoral scanner or a 3D printer or CBCT, and we essentially bring all these components together to design a workflow that works best for them. We have a method that's very predictable and efficient to lower the costs and headaches that we all experience. So we offer courses for doctors. We offer courses for lab technicians. We offer courses for dental assistants and also treatment coordinators. So we really look at ourselves as an ecosystem to help doctors really be able to help better, you know, the patients' lives in a more predictable fashion. So if people are interested, welcome to go to InstaRisa.com, and we can learn more about our ecosystem, and we'll embrace whatever technology you have. And if it's worthy, we'll make it work. If not, we'll advise you accordingly. So
Can pretty much guarantee wherever you're at, he can make you better. He's got amazing, like I feel like we're cutting edge, but he's able to take us to a whole nother level. And I'm pretty sure he could do that with pretty much anybody.
yeah. The other thing too that we do, Randy, I don't think people know, is that the pinch point right now in digital dentistry is design services, as you know. So you had to go out and hire and train and invest a lot of time and money in teaching people how to do this, because there isn't a school, a university out there pumping out dental designers.
Right.
And so fortunately, we've been blessed with having these amazing, passionate designers that are here in the U.S., and we're not sending it offshore, that understand the principles of smile design and occlusion. And so we also offer design services for any of those doctors. And I know that we've been able to go and help your lab technicians to help your doctors. And so
for sure. Yeah,
your doctors are going to be able to provide.
Perhaps one of the best designers on the planet that came to our office the other day, and he was just blew us all away with how amazing he was with his knowledge and understanding of design and the technologies and everything. So yeah. Definitely.
He's referring to Fernando Palenko. If you don't know Fernando Palenko, you should get to.
So that's Fernando that you've been talking about the whole time?
Yeah.
Fernando's amazing.
Fernando Palenko is the co-founder of InstaRisa, and he's a brilliant mind. So we sent you the best of the best, my friend.
Okay, yeah. He was amazing. I know that was the Fernando that you were talking about. Yeah, I know. He was amazing.
Yeah. So, but thanks again, my man. Appreciate you.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
And thank you guys for watching.
All right. Awesome, brother.
If you're considering restorative dentistry with dental implants, you should know all of your options. Head to 3on6.com and book a free consultation with a 3on6 provider near you. If you enjoyed this content, please like, subscribe, share, or leave a review in the comments. Until next time, keep smiling.